What is a sign in adulthood they were neglected as a child? Still feeling like you're always in trouble, even as a grown adult. This is maybe the main reason I never feel like I'm a full adult. I'm 35 and I have to constantly remind myself that I'm not on the verge of being punished for some perceived slight. Having an insecure attachment style, being out of touch with your feelings and had no one to teach you how to regulate them. I grew up just like this. I wasn't allowed to have an opinion because I was a child. I wasn't allowed to have privacy. I was never allowed to make choices without the approval of an adult, and standing up for myself was considered being disrespectful, and I was never allowed to talk back to any adults who were being disrespectful to me. I wasn't allowed to cry or be upset about anything. And now I'm an adult, I have trouble regulating my emotions. If I'm sad about something, I feel like I want to kill myself even though it's something that isn't serious. If I'm upset about something, I blow it way out of proportion and it takes me a minute to calm down. I was never taught any life lessons or how to do simple tasks such as cleaning or cooking. I have a fear of doing a task and someone comes along and berates me for not knowing how to do something simple which I was never taught how to do during childhood. It's embarrassing in fact. Parents who treat their children how you and I were treated just makes a person who can't think for themselves regarding decisions and always acting on impulse. I don't trust promises that people make. I avoid conflict as much as possible and tend to look for an exit if things get loud or if people move fast. I try not to be a burden to anyone, but I'm always checking in with people to make sure someone cares about them. I don't like spending money on myself, and if anyone buys me anything, I feel guilty or like it might be held over my head. I find more comfort alone or with animals than most people. I'm worried that I'm constantly disappointing people around me or wondering why anyone would want to be my friend or a romantic partner. I'm working on all of it, of course, and keep a normal appearance as much as possible. But my mind never really stops and I just wish I wasn't so sad all of the time. Hoarding certain things, like they never had enough and now cannot be without or afraid someone will take it away. Yeah, and as a side note, this can also be the case for people who were not neglected but lived through poverty. Poverty and neglect here. I never went hungry but food never felt stable or abundant. I struggle not to hoard food during good sales, and if the pantry feels like it's getting close to bare, it never truly does now. I start to get anxious and panicky and buy a ton of canned and boxed foods. Massive black spots in your memory. Feeling completely disconnected from your parents. Looking back at what you do remember as if it was lived by someone else. Oh. So maybe that's why I don't remember my childhood. Being shocked that their existence and actions are perceptible or meaningful to others. For example, they might easily blow off hangouts, not bother responding to texts, and show up late to things before quietly sitting down expecting that nobody really notices their presence or has any care whether or not they're around in the first place unless it is presumably random/convenient. Usually it is surprising and hurtful to realize that this has actually made the other people feel bad, but it is done with the genuine belief that literally nobody cares and you have no possible influence on anybody's life or feelings either way. Whoa! This hit home. I'm always shocked when someone notices something different about me, haircut, makeup, etc., or remembers something I did or said. Reading this made me realize my default is still to assume that my presence has no impact on anyone. Like I don't really count as a person the way everyone else does. Gets discouraged easily and always need words of affirmation BC they didn't receive any from parents. If they make a small mistake they can't help but keep thinking about it over and over again and feel like everyone in the world hates them. Yeah. That constant feeling of not being good enough and of doing things wrong, no matter how hard they try. Extreme defensiveness. Growing up you felt like you had to fight to the death for what you knew was right because you were constantly being told that things you saw in front of you, or experienced firsthand, didn't happen. I hate the question, "What are you doing?" because it makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong and am being told to justify my stupid behavior right fucking now. It triggers the worst fight or flight reaction in me and I can't stand that I get so pissy about it. Because it's like, never coming from a bad place, it's always genuine curiosity yet I can't hear it without feeling like I'm being shouted at. tearing up as soon as they start to talk about how they feel. Without exception, I've noted this is something people who weren't allowed to have emotions as a child do. This is something I think I do. I am really strong-willed generally, but when I walk into a meeting to describe how I feel, I end up in tears due to feeling passionate yet frustrated with the situation. I know my whole game plan, but soon as someone says, "How do you feel?" it's game over. When you're a child, an abandoned one, you don't have many memories as it is, so you can't even recall not being able to express emotions safely. It really is a vicious circle until someone says it based off observation. Lack of trust and an inability to truly be vulnerable with anyone, leading to a lack of deep connections. Trusting no one is so damn true. My trauma makes me assume the worst in everyone and assume they have ulterior motives. Or everything they're saying is slightly skewed or not the whole truth. Shout out therapy though. Compulsive lying. For some people, if they weren't safe as a child to trust the adults in their life with their feelings, they can develop a sense of safety in lying. It helps them to feel like their personal inner truth is protected because nobody can invalidate it if they don't know about it. On the other side of that, over-explaining because I don't want to be seen as suspicious or a liar. And then people think it's suspicious that you are explaining so much and they decide it's because you are lying or trying to cover up something. You go to therapy for something unrelated, share a normal story, and the therapist is like, "What?" Alternately, telling anyone else your childhood stories and they go, "What?" So many of us tell these absolutely horrific stories or neglect and abandonment, and we laugh, because if we don't see it as something humorous, it might break us. Over time, the sharp edges of trauma get softened and we honestly do believe, this is just a funny story. I'm still caught by the occasional memory where I'm like, wait, that's not funny, that was actually really fucked up. Don't do basic maintenance on themselves or wait until they deserve to have something basic. Like eating something they like or going to a movie. Sometimes taking a long shower or buying perfume. Other times it's things like sleeping in. They won't buy new clothes or the old ones are ripped/fallen apart. Things people don't think about doing that's part of your day-to-day. Someone neglected may have gotten that as a fucked up reward system from their parents. Trying to be nice to them is all but impossible. Any act of kindness, they immediately think you're up to something or want something in return. The concept of doing something for someone in their minds has always been tainted. They have a very hard time understanding unconditional love or simply being kind for no reason. I never want something in return because that means in my head I owe something, and being indebted is terrifying to me. I owe a favor that often I can't say no to, because I already find it difficult to say no and it's a return. I'm wholly suspicious. Why are you doing this nice thing? What do you want from me? What will I owe? Also, do you need to talk about yourself? Because very few on this planet in my experience is genuinely asking me if I'm okay, etc. It's usually been a segue for others to speak about themselves. It's a horrible lesson I've been taught that was hard to kick. The inability to shop for food correctly. The house must always have an abundance of food available because the cupboards were bare when I was younger. My partner grew up terribly neglected and undernourished. Our pantry is actually open shelves in our kitchen and fully stocked so they can see all the food all the time. I want to make sure they never worry about food again. It makes me sad. For me, I'd like to add, I know almost everyone's footsteps at work. Like, everyone's. It only takes me a day or so to memorize footsteps. Some people I work with, the jokesters, also learned I'm really easily startled, so for a while they liked to jump scare me until I was like, yeah. I had a horrible childhood and this isn't funny to me, so they stopped. I am surprised that others talk fast and also stop mid-sentence, when no one is listening, and apologizing for everything. Man, my parents did a number on me. Personally, I blow off hangouts with PPL easily. I believe nobody really cares about my presence, but my friend recently told me it bothered them when I cancelled, which stunned me. I've never felt that way before. Also, I have a bad habit of interjecting. I'm used to PPL talking over me and cutting me off.